Nastavljamo sa programom IGF-a I sledi tema koja je zaista izuzetno.
We will continue now with our next panel with a topic that is really very interesting in our society, dictated by the big tech. The ever-speeding up development of IT. I would like now to invite Mr. Dušan Stojičević from Gransy to introduce our panelists and to introduce this topic. My name is Dušan Stojičević. I come from the company Gransy, which is accredited register for RS domains. We have here with us today 3 panelists. I would like to ask them to introduce themselves on their own, and at the same time I would like to ask a question in order to define the basis for our discussion during this panel. I would like to see how you, from your perspective, from your scope of work, see the position of IT business in this environment, in the environment of new technologies, and in the environment of that black side of the crisis, economic crisis, which is present in the entire world and which was initiated by the war between Ukraine and Russia. So please, I would like to invite Sanja to introduce herself. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for participating in this important conference here in Belgrade. And then I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be the panelist. My name is Sanja Kekić. I come from the organization Women for Cyber from Serbia. Our organization deals with the increasing number of women in the field of cybersecurity. For the moment, I'm working on the project aiming to reinforce the position of women in the field of cybersecurity. We are one of 50 women that are influential in this area. I was in the book Hacking Barriers for Women. In that book, there were also other women, 100 women of Europe, that deal with cybersecurity. My background is IT and mathematics. I've worked a lot in banks, in telecommunication companies, in the areas of revision and controlling of IT systems, and now I'm specialized in cybersecurity. I started my career as a programmer.
Would you continue? What was the question? I am not sure. Basically, how do I see business nowadays regarding the development of technology and everything that is offered to us today? On one side, and also on the other side, the actual crisis that we face here in Serbia, but also worldwide, with also the crisis that we have specifically in Serbia. What I can say for the business itself, business should be happy to have the possibility to use new technologies and to have the opportunity to innovate its offer, its products, its services, using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also the openness of the internet. From my my point of view and from the point of view of cybersecurity, we can say, oh, it is not secure, you have to do this, you have to do that. And yes, it is one of our recommendations for anyone who wants to start a business and who wants to transform himself digitally and stop with the manual technology. First of all, they should be educated in the field of IT, but also of cybersecurity. And during a previous panel, there was a question of the responsibility of a person regarding the artificial intelligence of the person who commits an act that is punishable. And what everybody should know is that the IT doesn't consist of programmers alone, and that for a long time all the softwares, and including softwares for artificial intelligence, are being developed by a team of people, of the team leader, of a sponsor, then also testers, people who analyze. The programmer is the last one in this chain, and I like to say, when we compare the organization in finances and the organization in an IT company, the programmer is an accountant. Let's say that is so the programmer is last in the chain, and above him there are a lot of people who make decisions, and there are a lot of frameworks and in this life cycle of a software. And that is why I think that an economist cannot be an economist alone anymore, and that universities where economists, psychologists and others study in all the structures, there are people who are in the faculty of agriculture. All of them should, even in primary and secondary schools, have a subject that is linked with the general knowledge of IT. And this is the basis of everything, and that is where we can be safe to say that the use of all these technologies in terms of legislations will be observed from the people who have some kind of knowledge. That is what I would say on the side of the business. I would also like to add that for the business today in this real world, I like to say that we have a real and a digital world. So in the real world, we know what companies we should trust and what people we should trust. But what is still not well known in the digital world is how can we decide who to trust in terms of companies and people. And again, from my point of view and from my professional point of view of cybersecurity, I think that it is essential to create this digital trust.
I will use an analogy that you've mentioned. One of the leading accounting companies, Quantox, That's what we said, didn't we? So one of the leading companies, please, Filip. I will be brief. I'm CEO of the Quantox technology company that was established in 2006. We exist in 7 countries in Europe. We provide services in the area of IT support and programming. The topic is actually to establish a basis for the ecosystem and market. I won't talk about the latest development, but I will start from the beginning. So the overview is completely different in relation to the traditional ones. The most important element is the dynamic and the velocity of everything that's happening. Everyone who lives in this ecosystem is characterized by high adaptability and also by the assessment of the longevity of certain elements. There are great challenges that we see new technologies and trends emerging, and everything needs to be assimilated. We need to assimilate legal framework. That's what we've just mentioned. And normally, it takes more time than the informal work in the community. This is something that's characteristic. We can, of course, add other variables to this, but these are the grounds that we need to be aware of. Đorđe, you have the floor. Good day, everyone. My name is Đorđe Vukotić. I'm a director of operations, Joberty. It's a startup company that was established 4 years ago here in Serbia. We are present in Croatia, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Romania, and North Macedonia now. We've become the largest community platform for developers and for other people in IT business. There are not only developers in IT business, there are other profiles, of course, but we have more than 85,000 users. And basically they come from the IT community, namely developers and other professions that lean to IT processes. From a regional point of view, we can perceive the current situation and we can see the trends given the entire situation that the name of the panel suggests. We do have global and macroeconomic situations that impact everything wherever you are in the world, and whatever you do, if there is turbulence, a crisis, it will be sensed in the entire world undoubtedly, especially when crises emanate from the largest economies such as the US. The wave of crisis shatters Western Europe and also the Balkans. Local IT market, if we compare it to other industries, is way ahead if we talk about job opportunities, benefits, relationships between employers and employees, educational structure, age of employees. IT is, as I've said, way ahead. The crisis can be sensed, but everything goes on very swiftly in IT. Crises come and go faster because essential need of the world business in relation to the number of available programmers is times 10. This is probably the gap that will never be filled. Faculties, academies, of course, generate new juniors, if I may say so, new members of the IT community that will be working in future in this sphere. But the work is borne by seniors and medias, and in order to prepare, to train a young person, you need time. It can be 1 year, year and a half, 2 years, and you're not able to see concrete benefits before the expiration of that period. The situation is turbulent, but it depends on the vertical of IT where you are. It depends on the influence on that particular sector. Not all markets, not all sectors are equally influenced. It was just a short introduction, and then we'll move on. I would like you to continue because we've talked during the previous panel about AI, about legal framework, about legislation, and we actually saw that the speed of technology development influence the slowdown of the legal framework. So if we talk about IT business, is legislation dragging its feet? We could perhaps give a regional overview.
I cannot see that it is behind as much as it is behind the technologies. I would say it is less if we speak about legislation on a higher level. Basically, you can start a business faster now. Of course, the general legislation is not as simplified as it should be. I will give you an example from IT. It is a stock option plan for employees and a share in the company to employees. I'm sorry I use a lot of English words, but it is difficult sometimes to translate it into Serbian. This is something that in the United States, Western Europe, Japan, all the developed markets, it is very present. And practically every employee can have a part of the business. And it is generally very present in the startup system. The startup increases, develops very fast, and then it is sold at some point in development. And the stock option plan is especially important to startups in order for them to attract talents and people that they would not be able to afford as the big companies could. But with the additional benefits and the stock option plans, they can attract talents. It is legislation that is very new here, and a lot of startups are first incorporated in the States, and then they implement the ASOP. This is one of the examples where things could go faster, and it would bring a lot of benefit to businesses. Of course, I agree with Đorđe. There is another important thing. It is the conscience that they exist, not only here in Serbia, but also more broadly. We have this problem where a lot of startup companies have to incorporate companies abroad in another country that is better seen from the part of investors, where there is a good legislation for investment. Of course, there are a lot of things happening here, good things, but the next step now should be to work on this possibility for investors from abroad to see that there is legislation, and that should not be a reason to have the startup start abroad. I would also like to add that, okay, now the position of freelancers is being regulated, but that part regarding the IT industry was not regulated at all. And now we have done some progress, but as far as I know, freelancers as a category are not defined in the legislation. Maybe we have a part where they call him an entrepreneur, but it is not the same. An entrepreneur and a freelancer are not the same. A freelancer is just a single person who works for himself on the basis of a contract, and he will never employ anyone else. And so it is regulated by the tax administration law, and they have been explained about how to pay taxes, but the institution, let's say, of freelancers, we do not have it defined anywhere. And there are a lot of people who work as freelancers. It is one thing for a person to work under a contract that is not regular, but it's another thing when somebody has a regular contract as a freelancer. I would like to ask two questions, and about Serbia directly, because we all work in Serbia. So how do you think the part of money of this traditional legislation in the field of economy, is there something that should be changed there, apart from Đorđe said ESOP? Do you have some other ideas? Yes, since we do a lot of business with the companies from the United States, Canada, and Western Europe, there are a lot of ways to pay and to get paid, the exchange of financial means, but unfortunately some of them are not accepted here. 15 days ago, we had a problem of a company who wanted to pay us through a payment service, which is completely irregular. We didn't want to avoid any taxes or such, but this company uses some kind of payment system that they wanted to use it to pay on our account. But the problem was that the money to us is paid from the account of this payment processing firm, but we do not have the contract with this payment processing firm. So they asked us from the bank to show the contract with them, and we do not have a contract with them. We have the contract with the company with whom we are doing business, but they did not want to accept it. And they had to use a direct wire to send us the money. This is one of the examples. There are a lot of them, of course. But the problem that we see here is that this company will say, for example, if we can use this payment processing firm, it is very important to us, and you will get more tasks from us. If we have to wire the money directly, it is not very attractive to us because we use the position on the market because of that. These are very concrete things that we should work on.
I share your opinion because as an online platform, let's say Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, we all pay commercial and advertisement. These companies do not have offices in all the countries they operate. Payment processes that you've just mentioned and the entire regulation that stands behind renders the process easier. I will give you one example. Startup ecosystem in Serbia is fairly young. but it is on a higher level than before. We do have more and more startups. We have incubator and accelerator processes, but each startup wants to become an unicorn, or at least something like that. But it's impossible to achieve if you work only in Serbia. You cannot even be a startup in Romania, which is way larger, if you work in one country. Whoever initiates an IT business does not wish only to work only with local companies. They probably wish to include the entire region and the entire world. I agree with you. I come from the world of banks, and I myself started working as a programmer, and I started working on the very first digital transformation of the banking world. And I remember what were the challenges when I was young. What is perhaps the part of the first question, I would like to mention here that with IT business and with the development of technologies, the very definition of the state and of the relationship disappears. Each company works with someone in the state and with someone outside the state. This is valid for our country and for all other countries. And in that sense, the legislation and the operations that accompany the business must be at a way faster level. A few years back, we were talking about PayPal, our currency, another currency. These were all the brakes for the business, the brakes for young people, for all those who have a vision and who wish to see their company and who try to see themselves 10 years in the future. And then someone says, oh, no, you can't do it. And why can't you do it? Because, as I've mentioned before, the areas of law, economy must be educated. We cannot have a pure economist or a pure jurist. We need to have someone with broader horizons. We have to have someone who understands IT. We have to have a bank that will reflect on the basis of the client's example. The bank should try to help the client and not to say, oh, no, we can't do that for you. On the other hand, the state should also perceive these new businesses. Okay, perhaps we haven't seen all the tax facets of that problem, but we should do our best. Apart from the education that Sanja mentioned quite a few times, what I would like to know is whether the accountants or all of you globally are convinced of our educational systems. Do you think that staff hired has a sufficient level of education, or are there perhaps some problems? The only problem is that the number of the staff is insufficient. If we talk about formal education, it is good. I think that its level is good. I think that we have a lot of high-quality faculties with high-quality departments and professors that make easily adaptable young workers. I think that they can easily understand the needs of the markets. I think that they can see the life in different industries and different companies. I think that in recent years this has been at a very high level. Yesterday I visited the Faculty of Organizational Sciences and I was talking with the Vice Dean, and I was really thrilled because they invited us not because they wanted sponsorship, but because they wanted our time, our knowledge, and our experience. I know that the situation is the same at other technical faculties in the country. They do not lack cooperation with different companies, and this is why I think we have such good results. People who come from our faculty very often win at different competitions organized in the entire world. They should be better acknowledged here, and they should get more media attention. I think that we should not succumb to pressures coming from the commercial and economic sector, because we shouldn't have high number of staff to the detriment of the quality. Absolutely, yes. The problem is not the quality of staff, because we really have very good faculties. When you mentioned the Faculty of Organization Science, there was a conference organized this weekend. There were 400 students who attended it, who were able to listen to high-quality conferences and who got to know companies where they might work in future, go to an apprenticeship. And I really think that the cooperation between companies and faculties is good. Of course, it can be better, but there are also many student organizations that organize different events and conferences on the annual level, if we talk, of course, about IT sector. These conferences aim exactly the young population. Of course, there is also quantity that you've just mentioned. There is an opinion, if we talk about people outside IT. Yes, if I get somehow into the IT business, I will be able to pick up money from trees. Of course, that average salaries in IT business are higher than the global average, but if you want to earn good money, you need to bring value to that company. So we do have a good cooperation. There are students' organizations that work on it, but Quantox and all other companies that cooperate with the foreign organization shows very serious and very high quality according to the world criteria.
I agree with my colleagues, but this is linked to IT profiles only, people who will enter the world of software development. But when we speak about cyber security, what I can say is that faculties try to follow, and there are faculties who start to have master studies related to cybersecurity. Also on the Open IT last weekend, there was a session related to cybersecurity. And I am very pleased because I opened this session, and I'm very happy with the number of students that attended the session. And on the other side, since I also deal with women in cybersecurity, I am happy with the number of women who have followed the session. What I would like to add is that even people who are educated to become developers, we have heard a programmer is to blame for something, but what I would like to add is that the conscience of the programmer related to cybersecurity and secure coding, I would then like to add a subject, or to have it as a part of a subject that deals with raising awareness of people who create software, to have since the beginning in their consciousness that what they do today can be reflected later. Their mistake or their lack of knowledge about security can be reflected later and can make a big problem to the company as well as an individual or the entity to which they sold the product to, because I would like to say also that we all speak about ransomware and attacks, and every ransomware and every attack starts with the gaps in the code, with the problems in the code that have not been solved, the so-called bugs or vulnerabilities. They are used to commit an attack. So everyone, every person that creates a software should be aware that what he creates has to be secure.
I would just like to add something. Great rebuttal. Thank you. I think that I have an explanation for that from the aspect of economy and from the aspect of all of us who work with clients. A large number of clients stops at functional requests. Okay, let's talk about non-functional requests, but they don't know what that is. Scalability, reliability, compatibility, safety, and at the same time, a large number of projects does not foresee sufficient budget for that, don't have these requests, and automatically this unjustifiably goes to the second plan. And I agree completely with what was said. When we hire someone, we should place an accent on that, as well as the educational institution. It's really important to raise awareness, because when people get aware is when the damage has been done. I would just like to give an example. I heard a young programmer that was hired who processes a large database containing personal data. in order to solve the problem that he was unable to solve on the computer that he got, he needed to do something in Excel, but the database was large, so he was unable to use the computer that he got from his employer. He sent the document to his private email and also to his brother, because his brother had a better computer. So it was probably a Hotmail or I don't know, but basically a large database leaked somehow. And he did it because he wanted to perform his task. He was not at all aware of what he's done. He actually exposed personal data to a potential attack or to something similar. So this is why I'm saying that one part of one school of faculty subject should deal with security. They should understand that all their acts influence something or someone. Okay, we should slowly wrap this up. I would like to hear your personal opinion. What are for you the biggest problems? We've been talking about problems of IT business, of business on the internet. Well, yes, there are many problems. It's difficult to single out the most important ones and the biggest ones. We scale other markets, and if we talk from the legislative and legal point of view, all these elements should be the most efficient possible. If we go to foreign markets, and I'm not talking only about us, I'm talking about all the IT companies, we should bear all that in mind. There are advancements, of course. The situation is not as it used to be 20 years ago, but this is one of the challenges that exists, and we need to be harmonized with GDPR. We do have a large number of users on our platforms. Everyone needs to go through cybersecurity training. This is something that all of us need to take care of. Yes, sometimes it remains in the second plan, but it might be very, very important. Actually, it's not important until there's a problem, but when there's a problem, then we start panicking. Basically, the air crew is someone you perceive as someone providing ancillary services unless something happens. At that moment, flight attendant can save your life. So we have accelerators, catapults, incubators, DSI, and other software and programs emanated, but at the regional level, the situation is going towards a good direction. Cooperation on the regional level is something that we keep emphasizing because it can bring a lot of benefits. As I said, we have offices in the broader region of ours. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us to do things remotely or in a hybrid manner in the IT sector. The hybrid work is a new normal. we will, I think, never get back to what used to exist before the pandemic. Geographic frontiers have disappeared. We live now in the new times and we adapt.
What are the risks? We talked about a lot of risks. And I think that the most dangerous risk is the one that you didn't count on and that you are not ready for. We talked about risks related to compliance, to legislation, to security, and other aspects. For those that you are aware of, you will have a damage control plan. You will try to follow legislation, of course, but what do you do if you are a platform and just out of the blue your service drops? And you don't know at that moment if somebody attacked you, or there was a problem with the code, or the hosting company has a problem. So if you are doing some e-commerce and so the payment process, for example, stops at the moment where you have the most customers online, did the bank block you or what happened? These are the things that are the most dangerous, the things that the risks that you are not aware of. And that is why this exchange of experience is important. It is enough for you to understand that there is a problem, and you will seek information, try to get some knowledge about the topic, or you will contact somebody who works on that aspect of your business and tell him to investigate further and to know more about it. Yes, there are a lot of problems. We can talk about them for a long time. This is not good as a conclusion, of course, but I would not call them problems. I would call them challenges. And these are not challenges only for the IT industry when we talk about a crisis, but primarily for the society who is support to the IT industry. These are challenges that we should face and not run away from. We talked about hybrid work, and the challenge of that type of work is that it is still not recognized by the legislation here. Everything is good until something happens. So with IT companies are faced with that risk. The ones that have recognized that hybrid work is something that brings more productivity to their company, and also on the other side, it comes back as a boomerang in case something happens to the person who uses the hybrid work in a way, and you will not have legislations that will support you as a company to protect yourself from this kind of behavior. I am speaking about hypothetical situations, but the legislation does not recognize this type of work. And this is one of the problems. And when we speak about internet businesses, what COVID has brought us and what we should all be aware of is the expansion of internet business. And this will not go back, this will just go forward. And what I said in the beginning, the challenge is to build digital confidence. And what are the principles of building this confidence? We are starting to make frameworks on that topic, but the essence of this confidence is for you to have as a company doing business on the internet. that you have implemented in cybersecurity within your business plan, that you have implemented the production of quality service, that you have all the procedures related to recovery of that business, because today these companies, with these companies, the question is not whether this kind of thing will happen. The question is when it will happen and how fast I will recover from it.
This is now called resilience. How well can I resist? How can one resist to the COVID-19 virus? How much is a company resilient? Okay, let's try to include the audience. Are there any questions or comments coming from the audience? Yes, please, you have the floor. Good day. I work in the field of legal consulting, and having listened to you, I can say that what you do emanates from insufficient knowledge of the legal framework. I'm not talking negatively. Moreover, I hope to be able to help you. If we talk about Joberty, Mr. Đorđe Vukotić told us about sharing in America, and there is a part of corporate law which talks about the subscription of difference in the ownership structure. This exists here too. Our legislation recognizes that also. Mr. Karaičić from Quantox talked about payment through intermediary in order to be able to draw money while drafting the main agreement. You have to foresee payment through intermediary. And another thing about freelancers, it is true that they are not recognized by the law. It was an omission, formally, legally speaking. There are institutes that keep changing the freelance status. Also, if we talk about entrepreneurs, there are one-member societies, and there are also LTDs with one member. Yes, those who are registered as entrepreneurs, but perhaps an entrepreneur can be also wider or bigger. Yes, you are right, I've mentioned that. But on the basis on your comment, I could also add that in IT departments there should be a segment talking about some legal framework governing startup companies and their creation. Are there any more comments? Good afternoon. Just one suggestion. My company and a group of people were using Revolut cards. These cards cannot be issued here, but can be issued abroad, and this works well. So people who have Revolut cards instantaneously transfer money from one account to another. Thank you. Igor Mosny from the Mosny Consulting Company. One question for all the panelists. IT business, Serbian IT business in the today's world, given the geopolitical situation and the crisis, can Serbian IT business become an important player in Europe and in the world? I'm not talking only about companies that come from Ukraine and Russia. I'm talking about other companies that came here. So is the state conscious of that?
First of all, maybe we talked a bit about the crisis, but what every crisis brings is possibilities. And in the crisis, individuals and companies and the state itself should seek and look for the possibilities that are in front of them. Every crisis has shown that it helps the IT industry. Yes, whether we are or not, maybe the state has recognized this. I am not involved in all the events on the level of the states, but I think the state has recognized it, and I think that the part of the state that is in charge of innovation should be recognized, but it is also important for the other segments related to the regulation of the financial market and employment and etc. Yes, we should take this crisis and as well as the COVID crisis and use it. I hope we will take advantage of it and become the leader in the region, if not even broader. The question was whether we could become a leader. It depends on the sense. If we observe the size of the IT community and its capacities, we cannot, because there are countries that have much more talents and capacities, but where we can aspire to become leader is the knowledge and experience. We have shown this here in Serbia. Serbia is recognized in the world as a good place for blockchain technologies. Some blockchains have been written for the first code here in Serbia, and some startups are still active here, and they have attracted a lot of investments. They have a lot of success. What is very modern now is artificial intelligence. And what is interesting here is to maybe try to make a combination between the domain knowledge and technology achievements, because AI should be used in a concrete field, and if you do that, you can be recognized worldwide. In terms of quantity, we cannot aspire to be leaders because we have a limited number of people and companies. But in terms of quality, of course, in a certain extent we can, but we should not live in these illusions that we are not affected by the crisis. We are not an island in the middle of the ocean to say that everybody else is in a crisis and we are not. Of course, the crisis is in Serbia and in Croatian IT and everywhere. Whether we will be stronger when the crisis is over, we cannot say. but there are opportunities that we can use. And of course, it is every company that should look for its chance, and time will show how we have finished, what happened after the crisis. I would like to thank everybody. It was my pleasure to host you here, and Tamara will take over. Thank you. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, moderator. So we are approaching to the end of this year's gathering. I hope we have started some interesting thematics, and we will publish the messages on our website. I would like to thank organizations that have supported the forum. It is USAID, the organization Internews, ICON, Right NCC, and the Office of for Protection of Equality. I invite you to join us for the cocktail to exchange our ideas, and the program is hereby finished, but there is also still a space for discussion about IT politics. We salute you until the next IGF. Thank you.